So as Europe is becoming less friendly, to say the least, for brokers, other regions are gradually growing and becoming somewhat of FX hubs. One such region is the Middle East. Dubai's license, for instance, is becoming quite popular. And even Saudi Arabia has opened up for Forex recently, hopefully. So, to discuss all this, I have my colleague Celeste Skinner, who will take it from here, please.
Hello and welcome to our panel today. We'll be discussing the Middle East markets. So as Michael already said, there are obstacles in the Middle East, but nonetheless, the region is showing a lot of progress. And so today our panel is called Golden Glitter, Understanding Today's Middle East Markets. And this one question I'm going to open up to all of you. So based on all of your experience, is the Middle East markets really golden glitter or perhaps less so?
Yeah. Hi, Ziad Malham, CBDO of Amana Capital. We're a very active broker in the Middle East. We're a regional broker. Well, the Forex market has evolved a lot in the past years in the MENA region. Given that the region took time to adopt Forex as an asset class, and given that the industry started like in a shy way in the early 2000s, it has grown and flourished rapidly in the past years. And actually, this is due to three main things. Number one is the okay and the good regulatory environment in different countries around the region. Number two is the always growing investment appetite in the region, which is a very important point. In the early 2000s, the rise of the local equity markets served as a foundation for alternative investment products in that region. And from that time until today, we see that the interest in the Forex market has been increasing steadily up till today. And the third very important point to mention is that the technology and the adoption rate in the MENA region is very high compared to world average. And this is an important point when it comes to our industry because we're talking about online trading. The advancement in Forex technologies supported this growing demand on the way until today. Now, by going back to your question, is it all gold and glitter? I would say that the MENA market is a lucrative market, maybe very lucrative market. It is a profitable one as well, but it is definitely a difficult market to do business in. It's not an easy one. Why would I say that? I would say that simply because we're dealing with like a frontier and emerging markets. It's not only about our industry. Any industry dealing with frontier and emerging markets will have to deal with like clients' needs, clients' demands, and clients' behavior patterns continually changing. Even the regulatory behavior patterns in emerging markets are continually changing as well. So as a broker or as a Forex broker in the region, you have to be constantly evolving and adapting to these changes in order to survive and grow in that region. So bottom line, for me, it's a lucrative market, profitable one, but it's a very difficult market to do business in as well.
Yeah, Mohammed Spear from Equity Group. So my answer to this is probably going to be yes and no at the same time. I mean, is it all golden glitter? I would say the Middle East and maybe GCC in specific is a very important market. The account size is usually twice the size, but needs very specific ways, and you need to understand the culture before you kind of navigate through the market. It's really a unique market. If you want to be able to tackle that market, you need people on the ground. And you know, it's different than everybody else, I would say.
So, Nidal from CFI. I do agree with the gentleman over here that it is a potential market. It is a growing market, but just like any other market, I would say. It's just becoming right now like growing and some countries are introducing the new regulations. So with that comes that some obstacles. It's not as easy. It's not all golden glitter. That's for a fact. But I would say it's just like any other market when they started, or when other region when they started with the online with the regulations. So it is still premature to say that it is a fully matured market. There is special demand, there is special requirements for this market. But I would say again that it is very similar to any other region. Every place, every client, every country would have or would need their own requirements, their own demands. So potential, yes, but it comes with a lot of demand and obstacles.
Hello, I'm Ryan from ATFX UAE office. So back to the question, I would say yes. In my opinion, ATFX started operation in UAE more than years. I would say in this way, Middle East market is just like a gold mine. Everyone knows there is a gold mine, but that gold is deep inside the mountains. Everyone is finding their own way to find those golds. For the kind characteristic, they're professional. Most of the kind, they're professional, they're institutional kinds. They know what they're doing. This kind of kind actually is the broadcast light, because we don't like the clients, they don't know what they're doing, they invest and then losing money and then they cry. So in my opinion, back to the question, I would say yes.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth. I'm the founder of Your Mind Media Marketing Agency for Forex Brokers. I can speak from my own experience. I joined the broker when they were just in their startup phase in Dubai. I was with them for 6 years, and the Middle East was one of their strongest markets. So I definitely think there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of potential, but what's important is that you have a strong team on board that understands the region, understands the clients, and a strong marketing strategy that encompasses all of the regions, all of the countries in the region, sorry, because not every country is the same within the GCC, and you really have to tailor your strategy to each country. So I think if you have a good plan in place and a good team, then definitely you can make it work for yourself.
And in terms of trading in the Middle East and the larger MENA region, and this is open to all of you, what are the top assets that people are trading at the moment?
I mean, is it working? So I would say there was quite a shift in the last couple of years. So it was, we used to see a lot of trading on oil and gold maybe 7-8 years ago. But in the last maybe 2-3 years, I think currencies has kind of been the main focus in the Middle East, plus the rise of the US indices as well. I mean, they've been going up for what, 10 years now. So I see a lot of shift on the US indices and more direction toward the FX, while maybe 10 years ago it wasn't the same case. I mean, at least that's what we see in our company.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I would say there was just a lot of drop in the last decade, I would say, on the traditional kind of investment, which is the local stock exchanges, the real estate, even if you wanna talk about it. So naturally, a lot of those portfolio, even individuals and corporates, are trying to find a new kind of investment tools to diversify. So we see also a lot of demand, a lot of increase on the CFDs, on some of the currencies, and of course, as Mohammed said, on some of the US and European kind of equities.
And Ziad, you actually recently, you spoke with us at Finance Magnates regarding the MENA region, and during that time you said that the euro, cable, gold, silver and oil are the top assets traded at the moment. Do you see that changing anytime soon?
Well, yes, this is what I said. I think in general, the majors in general are popular trading instruments. To be more specific, we're talking about the euro, the cable, Australian dollar, Japanese yen. Also, as we mentioned in the article, the metals, gold and silver, actually gold much more than silver, plus oil definitely. I do not think that this is going to change in the near future for a simple reason. I think the most popular instruments in the MENA region are in a way or another the most popular instruments in other regions around the world as well. Now it might differ a little bit from one area to another. If we move from the Middle East towards North Africa, you might see that some instruments are a little bit more popular than others. Or if you focus on specific countries, for example, I would expect that oil to be a little bit more popular in Saudi Arabia than it is in Lebanon, for example, or like trading the cable is a little bit more popular in Jordan than it is, for example, in Egypt or in Bahrain or in Qatar. It might differ from one country to another, but overall, if we look at the region overall, I guess what the guys mentioned and what I said are the most popular instruments over there. But worth mentioning, an important point is that because we've been in the market for a long time, we always see from time to time like trading waves, and I guess Muhammad was mentioning one of these waves regarding the indices. Trading waves is that when demand increases on a specific instrument for different reasons. Like recently, we will also seen the Turkish lira wave. A year ago, we've seen the crypto CFDs waves, and I guess it's happening again now. We started to see demand increasing. Demand usually increases on these instruments for specific reasons. It might be like economical news, political news, some uncertainty in specific areas around the world. But based on our experience from 2003 until today, these trading waves are usually short-term waves. The most popular instruments, I guess, will always remain for the coming period at least.
I agree on one thing. One thing I'd like to mention is always volatility. Like you said, it's waves. I think it's about the volatility. I think people just kind of focus on the most volatile instrument at the time. And when there's a volatility wave coming into any product, they're just usually, like you said, it's not region specific. I think every trader in the world just kind of, focus on the same thing.
Okay, and according to Finance Magnates Intelligence, towards the end of 2017, traders in the UAE executed 323 million FX transactions. So I was wondering if you could give a bit of, give some history on how trading has changed since then in terms of volumes and in terms of patterns.
Yes, well, since you mentioned the UAE, United Arab Emirates, it's very important to mention that UAE actually led the way in creating a growing forex market in the MENA region as a whole. The country invested heavily in the required infrastructure in order to create a financial sector that currently acts as an important regional hub for international institutional clients as well as retail clients. And I can name some strategic moves that were done by the country, like the establishment of the Dubai Gold and Commodities Exchange, the DGCX over there. And a very important move and very strategic move was the establishment of the free economic zones over there, as well as the regulatory bodies associated with these zones. For example, there is the Dubai, for example, International Finance Center, a free zone, and the DFSA, the Dubai Financial Services Authority, that actually regulates currently MENA Capital as well as CFI, as well as lots of other brokers that are visiting the expo here, whether IG, Swissquote, FX Pro, among also others. There's also a similar move that took place in Abu Dhabi Global Markets, FISRA, the Financial Services Regulatory Authority over there, in that specific free zone. For me, these are really brilliant moves because the country itself understands the strategic geographical location of the country and the region itself, and managed to position itself and the region kind of as an international hub for forex flows between Europe and Asia at the same time. Going back to the volumes, since you mentioned volumes in general, now we do have access to the international reports that we all know about. We have access to Finance Magnates reports, which are great ones, Bank of International Settlements, or other financial centers around the world, or even the reports that are issued by the listed companies around the world. This data is one thing, but from our experience on the ground, and we're going to hear from the guys' experiences here, since 2003 until today, volumes in the MENA region, we see a steady, a clear, solid uptrend in general. Now, definitely there has been ups and downs on the way. And definitely in certain countries, like volumes might drop significantly because of regulatory decisions or economical situations in that country. But if we take a step like backward and we look at the overall region, we see a very solid uptrend volume, and it's reflecting actually on our businesses as companies that are established in the Middle East and operating there. And I think this trend is going to continue in the short, medium, and possible the long term as well.
Okay, and in order for a broker to be successful in the MENA region, marketing is a really important tool that brokers need. And so directing this question to Elizabeth, which is where her expertise lies, what are the most effective marketing strategies in the MENA region at the moment?
So I wouldn't say there's one magic formula that you can implement to be successful. I think it really comes down to the foundations. You need to have a good CRM system where you can analyze the campaigns that you run. Obviously, you need a diverse strategy which incorporates digital, PR, events, education, seminars. But you really need a 360 strategy that incorporates everything from an amazing website, a strong social media presence. And when you have that in place, as well as a good customer service team that speaks the right language, a marketing team that knows how to translate PIPs, leverage, execution in the correct Arabic terms, because from my experience, that's often not been the case. And then you end up wasting a lot of money and frustrating a very busy sales team because the leads come through and they have no idea what they've signed up for. So really, I think the basics are the most important. And from there, you can then analyze what's working well for you, because what might work well for one broker that's international and has many offices might not work as well for a smaller brokerage that has just one or two offices in the Middle East. So there's not really one magic formula, but really I'd say just the foundations, the basics need to be done right. And then from there you can really maximize your return on investment and make sure that the money that's spent from the marketing budget is spent in the right places.
Actually, that's very true. I would just add to that the Middle Eastern clients, due to historical reasons of some companies here and there, some companies just disappearing, have some trust issues. So it's not like that they go to the website and they see a nice website, they search the regulations. It's more of a physical location thing that they need to visit, they need to see face to face, to do a handshake if you want to. So physical location and being in certain places are very important in the Middle East. Comes with that, of course, that you need to have the right people, the right team. Middle Eastern clients are so demanding, so the guys know that. So with that, you need to have, of course, the CRM. You need to have the right website in place. Of course, you need to have the right education, the right service afterwards. But I would say, like, location is very important, to have offices, to have places over there.
One thing I'd like to add as well is sometimes we generalize over the Middle East as a region, but there's very specific country-level kind of marketing tools that you can look at as well. I mean, in certain areas you need to go with online marketing, certain areas you need to do more education, seminars, webinars, etc. FaceTime, I agree, it's, I think, one of the most successful tools to use in the MENA region, but there are some country-specific tactics that you need to use. It's completely different between if you're targeting GCC or you're targeting Egypt or Lebanon. It's kind of good to understand all these individual countries and behave, according to the needs there.
I would like to add something, because at Amana for years we've done it all types of advertisements, starting from all kinds of online advertisements to the offline advertisement, whether like sponsoring TV shows on Al Arabiya, CNBC Arabia, to having our own shows, to even like sponsoring football teams in the heart of Saudi Arabia, seminars on the ground like the guys, tens of seminars for years going on. All types of advertisement that you might think of were done. I would like to give a general advice based on our experience for brokers who would like to do business in the Middle East and start strategizing or doing their own marketing campaigns. Do not rely on the general studies that are coming from the Western side, where usually these marketing studies are based on developed markets. When you're dealing with the Middle East, it's a completely different market because, as we said before, we're dealing with emerging markets and frontier markets. And Arabs in general are different from other nations. They are very conservative when it comes to giving their 100% accurate feedback when it comes to marketing surveys, for example. And this usually might mislead companies building their strategies on these advanced studies. I would advise people to, there's a magical tool nowadays, which Elizabeth mentioned and the guys mentioned, which is social media. Via social media in the Middle East, you can feel the sentiment. You can understand the client's needs. You can see how the engagement is going. You can understand how to penetrate the market and what kind of messages you need to communicate to the audience. Another important factor is that from a demographic perspective, 50% of the MENA population is below 25 years old. And a very good amount of these people are very educated people with very good buying power and investment power. Do not approach these guys with 2005 and 2006 marketing messages. I mean, if you want, just as Elizabeth was saying, just to put like a banner over there and translate via Google Translate, open a free demo account, افتح حساب تجريبي مجاني, that's suicide. When it comes to marketing, it's just like burning dollars. These people are advanced. These people are sophisticated, and you need to deliver the proper messages to them and the proper services to them in order for you to be able to penetrate the market.
I try to keep short. We are, as a broker, we are a financial company. What we are selling is trust. To be frank, all the comment from other speakers, I totally agree. In Middle East, how to build a trust with a client or with a company. Maybe in Europe, you're having a good website, having a good forum post, you already can do it. But in Middle East, you need to build a trust face-to-face with physical touch. So that's why we need offices. We need to hold seminar, even join an expo, to increase a chance for us to approach our client. But because Middle East with a large populations, at the same time with different countries, we need to combine online and offline at the same time. But offline is one of the crucial elements to being a success on the marketing side.
Sorry, one last thing, and let's stop talking after that. Sorry. Also, Elizabeth mentioned localization. I would say not only localize your service or your marketing messages, I would say localize the hell out of everything. Localize the brand, localize the resources, localize the experts, localize the marketing campaigns, localize the websites, localize the resources that you have. Use the local experts on the ground in order to craft your strategies and marketing campaigns, because what worked, as I mentioned before, what works in developed countries does not work in the MENA region.
Perfect. And sort of going back to Elizabeth, during your experience with working with brokers and helping them with their marketing campaigns, what have you found that really has worked and what hasn't worked?
So I think what really has worked is going back to the personal touch and being present and having the office and inviting people to the office. So whether it's for a seminar or during Ramadan, inviting them to an iftar, or really having that personal touch and making them feel exclusive and valued, and not treating everybody the same. So if you've got a professional client, you would treat them slightly differently to a retail client that maybe trades with $1,000 rather than $100,000, and they really want to feel appreciated. I think what works well is just making sure that they know that they count to you. And what hasn't worked is just going back to the basics again, really. Throwing money out there for a campaign, not tracking it properly, having leads come back, not really knowing where did they click, what was their journey on the website, what were their touch points, did they sign up on their mobile phone, did they sign up on the desktop. You can spend hundreds and thousands of dollars on a billboard on Shakeside Road, for example. But if you can't track it, if you can't say, go back to the director or the CEO and say, okay, this money that we've spent has worked well because we've got X amount of clients who've deposited this much and then traded this much and traded these products and has stayed with us for this long. So you really need to be able to track the whole journey and every sort of activity that the client is doing with your brokerage in order to justify why you're spending the money in different places.
And one of the themes for this whole IFX Expo this year is to break misconceptions in the industry. And Nadal and Mohammed, you both particularly have a lot of experience in work in the B2B space in the MENA region. And so the question that I ask you both is, what are some of the current misconceptions in the region and what's the reality? And so Nadal, you can start this one.
Okay, I mean, this is a very big subject. So we've seen a lot of, I would say, new offers, newcomers to the market. Because of the availability of, I would say, low-cost technology, everyone can give out a kind of connection, API, and so on and so forth. Because a lot of the newcomers of those companies, due to lack of experience, due to greed, if you want to, do not believe in covering cost and so on. So they're able to come in giving ridiculous kind of offers with no actual conditions and just giving low cost in the spreads and the commission, sometimes even without those. Of course, some of the companies would go ahead with this. They say, yeah, it's a good offer, and with the first kind of bumps or something like that, problems just start occurring, and we have seen that a lot in the past 5-6 years. I would say even just after 2015 with the Swiss franc. A lot of the new companies coming in, a lot of the so-called, if you want, liquidity providers came into the Middle East, start giving ridiculous offers, and the brokers just went with it. And we saw some of them disappearing, some of them bankrupt. The other reason for that, I would say, is the lack of regulation over there. That it is just right now being introduced in some countries. Maybe United Arab Emirates were one of the first to introduce it. Other countries right now are doing it. So all of those things just open the door for the so-called liquidity providers, technology providers, B2B providers, if you want to just come in introducing ridiculous offers, and just as always, the companies will go for it.
To me, I think the B2B space in the Middle East is kind of a difficult one. But the main misconception, I would say, that people think that the B2B space in the Middle East is quite new. But I would say there are loads of brokers before the regulations came to the Middle East. There was loads of Middle Eastern brokers who went out and seek regulation in countries like the UK or Cyprus or Switzerland. I mean, at the beginning of that time, before the regulation came in, there was a lot of schemes and these brokers that come and go within like a year or two. But that's the same way in every market as well. We've seen this happening in the UK and in the US as well. And then when the regulation comes in, these good Middle Eastern brokers, they usually come back, which is exactly what happened. They all came back when they're becoming a regulation, whether it was Dubai to start, Kuwait, Jordan, Lebanon, etc. They started to come back, and we have good companies with good track records. The other thing I would like to say, where in the Middle East, I think there's not as many brokers as everybody thinks. I would say probably the ratio would be 70 to 30 of international brokers setting up shops in the Middle East, while only maybe 30% of actual Middle Eastern brokers trying to compete globally. But I would say that they've been doing, actual Middle East brokerages have kind of been working on the international standards recently and have been competing globally with a good, with good chances. Taking aside these, schemes that happens every now and then, I think the Middle Eastern brokers are solid, and I think they're well capitalized. And this is one of the main, ideas behind the Middle Eastern brokers is usually they focus on the capital. There's will funding. You can always go to somebody and get will funding for a nice project. And the FX industry is quite overall, I would say globally is still new if you compare it to the stock market or the bond market. And there's loads of opportunities in the Middle East which always attract new investments into this sector.
Okay, moving on to regulation. As we've already touched upon, the Middle East, and if you expand it to the whole MENA region, you know, it's comprised of lots of different countries that are all at different stages of regulation. And actually, there was a recent development in Saudi Arabia towards the end of April where they actually issued the first license to an FX trading provider. So just wanting to get your thoughts on what does this mean for Saudi Arabia and the Middle East region? Anyone can start.
From our perspective at Amana, we don't have enough information regarding this matter. Actually, I don't think still there is available information regarding this matter. We have our contacts, whether with the regulators or with established financial institutions on the ground. Still, lots of them are not sure on how the final shape of that regulation is going to be. But if we assess everything that has been happening in Saudi Arabia recently in the past few years, we just hope that this is going to be one of the positive moves that is going to happen soon. And definitely it is a market that would interest a company like Amana Capital as well as the other brokers to explore what kind of regulations are they having over there, what are required capital, what's leverage over there, what are the rules and the regulations. It's a very interesting market, and we hope it's going to be a very big positive move for the region itself.
I mean, I would have to agree. I mean, there's not much information about this so far, and given the fact that the first company that assumingly got the license is a local brokerage in Saudi, doesn't actually make it seems like it's a bank and owned by Saudis. It doesn't actually make it seem that there is a lot of opportunity for outside brokers to come in. But I would say, I mean, Saudi is one of the most important markets for the Middle East, and like Ziad said, everybody's going to be looking into that. And but I wouldn't say. I mean, I think this is kind of like just basically unlocking the door. It's going to take a lot of time until we can see some actual progress with this. But yeah, it's a great opportunity. I think the door is open. Just going to take a lot of time.
I mean, yeah, it's very true. I think it's just a natural evolution for the market, like we have seen in a lot of other markets. It is a very potential market. All the companies are very interested to be there. We have seen a lot of changes in the last couple of years in the Saudi market, with the authorities over there just being more tough, putting some limits on the companies and on the clients. I think it's just because of all the companies going over there. As the guys said, one local bank have received it, and we've seen the same introduction of laws in the Middle East, and it can take from 6 months, 1 year, and it can take 5 years, and sometimes even more to that. So it's the only thing that's for sure that if they introduce something about the regulations, I think all the companies will be just running into there.
I will put it in a high level way. In globally, we see that in the Europe regulator, they try to closing the doors or putting more restriction on the broker. Australia, they're doing something right now. In Asia, also the similar situation. In the world, from what we see, the only region they try to opening a door for the CFD business or the FX business is only Middle East. So right now, we know that there is Lebanon having license, Jordan having license last year, UAE, they have 2 or 3 license. Right now, we have Saudi right now. So for this new, although right now we don't have much information about that license, but overall, it is good news for us.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest concerns is whether Saudi will grant licenses to all eligible FX brokers, or will it just be something that's given to a privileged select group?
I mean, I think it's the law there anyway to have a Saudi partner, so it's not going to be as easy for everybody. It's not exactly the same as Dubai, where you can come in and just be regulated. You need to also have a local company, a local partner. It's going to be a bit much more complicated than it is in the other countries in the Middle East, but very promising, I would say.
I mean, it also depends on the regulation when it comes out. So it is potential regardless. Even if they don't have it, if they have it only for the local brokers, you will see a lot of the companies trying to do a B2B kind of institutional offering for those local brokers. So it is definitely potential for both ways, retail or institutional.
Okay, and we are getting to the end of our time today, but just to give sort of, the audience members some insight, how long can, or should a broker expect for it to take to get a license, and what's the cost? And I mean, Ryan, ATFX just last year opened their broker based in the UAE. So yeah, how long should brokers be planning to secure a license in the region, and what's the expected cost?
So I know everyone know that Dubai have a DIFC. I think most of the people already got information how long does it take to get a DIFC license. ATFX have another approach. We go to Abu Dhabi to get a license in ADGM. To be frank, the regulations or the framework of the regulation is really similar to UK. So it takes around 8 to 9 months to get a license. But in general, I don't think it will take more than a year. It's really similar to get a license in FCA. So for the cost of running a business in UAE, to be frank, everyone knows that it is not cheap to running a business in UAE. Especially we running an operation in a free zone, the cost is even higher. So I can say roughly the cost of running a business in UAE is really similar to running a business in UK, or even sometimes higher.
I mean, yeah, I would agree. Like, the regulators are facilitating those things, so they're making it easier. Still, it will take from 6 months to a year to set up. I mean, we've been operational in the Middle East since 20 years, but in last year alone, we had the Dubai DFSA, and we had 5 offices in Jordan. So it took time to set up those offices, and definitely it's not cheap to run those offices with the regulations, but the regulators are facilitating, are making it easier. They're inviting the companies to come in, and companies are showing a lot of interest in the region.
I would like to agree with Ryan as well. I think it's a kind of the same amount of time, the same amount of effort when you do regulations anywhere in the world. I mean, we've recently had Jordan, Kenya, we have Armenia as well. It was exactly the same process, took almost the same time. It's always somewhere between 6 months. If you have all your documents ready, your business plans, it's usually 6 months to a year wherever you go. It's the same here in Cyprus, I guess, and unless there's the regulator has kind of issued a rule where they're stopping or delaying some applications. I think six months to a year max would be the average.
Yes, I would agree regarding the time. When it comes to MENA, we have 6 regulated entities, 2 of which are in the Middle East. One of them is in Lebanon since 2010, and the other one in DIFC in Dubai. Now, in Lebanon, when we took the first license in 2010, 2011, it was the license issued by the central bank over there. Things have changed now in Lebanon, where now the Capital Market Authority is the authority that gives the licenses over there. At that time, I will not talk about operational cost, because this is something depends on the broker, how much the broker wants to pay on operations. But from a capital perspective, in Lebanon it was around 1.3 million at that time. In DIFC, from a capital perspective, it depends on which category license the broker is applying for. If it is a category 4, where the broker is a broker that only forwards business to another regulated entity, for example, in Cyprus or in the UK, it's like a few $100,000, not much. But if the broker wants to hold a client's money funds in the UAE, it could start from $500,000, and it could go up to $3 million in capital, depending on the activity, on the licensed activity of the broker.
Perfect. Well, I think we are down to the last few minutes, so we will open the floor to any questions.
I'm from Equity Capital. I have a question for all of you regarding each individual country in the region. If you would say top 3 countries per person, where do you see the most potential from client base in overall per country in MENA region for each segment that you guys represent?
Shall I start with this one? So definitely UAE is number one. I think it has the biggest potential, especially with Expo 2020 coming. They're expecting 25 million visitors over 6 months or something like that, around that figure. So there's huge potential there. And then with the developments in Saudi Arabia, I'd put that as number two. And then I'd say Kuwait and Bahrain are also very, very good countries to focus on with a lot of potential. So those would be my 3/4.
So for me, it's Egypt, UAE, and Saudi. So, but recently, Saudi having some changes. So, but in general, Egypt, UAE, and Saudi is the top 3 countries in the UAE, in the Middle East.
I mean, I would say UAE, Jordan, and Lebanon, due to the availability of regulations over there.
Yeah, I was going to say as
You
well.
should not answer. He can ask this question at office, I guess.
You have the statistics.
Mohammed, you don't have to answer.
I think people are kind of dismissing Kuwait. I think Kuwait is one of the strongest
Totally agree.
countries as well in the Middle East. Plus, of course, Jordan has been coming up a lot. Yeah.
When it comes to the GCC, I guess UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait rule by far. North Africa, I guess Egypt is the biggest market. Levant, from our experience, Lebanon is a big market for us. So I would look at these. I would focus at these 5 countries, not 3.
Hi, my name is Wei from ATFX. So this question is not for Ryan. This is a question for Mohammed from Equity because he said you're a good friend of his. So different jurisdictions, they have different requirements from clients. What, in your view, what is the most difficult requirement from Middle East region and how do you cope with that?
The most difficult requirement from the Middle East, I would say probably it's maybe Egypt and Jordan. The clients are quite demanding. The account sizes maybe does not justify the level of service asked for. But they're very demanding. The payment solutions needs a lot of work as well. I would say these would probably be the most demanding. But also, I mean, from a global perspective, I think in China you would find a lot of these demanding people as well. I've seen a lot of demand. Also, the servicing the Chinese clients, the IBs, etc., is very demanding. And from this region, I would say Egypt probably the most demanding clients that you can see.
Perfect. Well, unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. But to all the speakers, thank you so much for joining me
Thank you.
today. And to the audience, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.